Thank you very much for having this conversation. And so let's start by explaining why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
We're here because you both were participating in a vigil, a rally on behalf of Black Lives Matter. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a protest we did in Hingham at the bathing beach.
And what prompted you to pull this together, and how did it come together? And share with us in your own words how this began, how it unfolded, and how you felt afterward.
So Darcy had been going to Black Lives Matter protests in Scituate a lot with their sister, and invited me to one a bit ago. And because the incidents that have been happening recently are just more. It's not like there are more now. There are just more broadcasted, and people are talking about them more now. So there was this uprising of people who were coming out of their shells, coming out of their little bubbles, who wanted to join these protests. So I went to a Scituate protest, and we went to the vigil in Hingham, and we were thinking, why doesn't Hingham have any protests? And we had thought we had organized some events before and knew that we had people in our community that really wanted to enact change, and we knew that we could do this. So we were just thinking one day, what if we just had one tomorrow? What if we just had a casual protest tomorrow? We invited everybody that we knew, and we just stood at the bathing beach, and things got a little bit complicated because you usually have to like rent that space and whatever. So we pushed it later, and the later and later we pushed it, the more people heard about it. And then it turned into this full-blown event. We had about like 250 people come, and we had a bunch of speakers that we had reached out to in the community. And it just turned into something so much bigger and much more awesome than we had ever thought it was going to be.
Darcy, would you like to add to that?
Just that almost all the other towns across the South Shore have done protests and vigils and have just spread the word. Like there was another march that happened at the Scituate Lighthouse too. But Hingham has had very little action. And they're one of the very few towns around here that have a percentage of white people higher than 97%. Like I think it's
99.5.
It's ridiculous. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And we both wanted to kind of insert in a very clear manner that Hingham is not immune either.
So what happened at your event at the bathing beach?
So we had people show up pretty slowly, and we played historic music made by African Americans and people of color, just to kind of set the scene at first. We thought that would be a good idea because a lot of this, we're musicians, we know each other through music, and a lot of our friends we don't know through music. And a lot of people were posting about and giving awareness to Black musicians, saying we wouldn't have rock and roll, we would not have jazz, we wouldn't have blues or anything without Black musicians. So it was just another way to respect the history and like why we're here as musicians. So we started off with some music, and then as people showed up, we kind of explained what we were gonna do, and everyone brought their friends and their pets and their families and their signs, and someone brought what is it, like a blowhorn? What's the thing called?
Oh, bullhorn.
Bullhorn. I don't ever remember what it's called. And she was great, just like talking and speaking on the sidewalk, and we all went to the sidewalk of 3A. It's right near where we were, was like, a little bit of a drive into like Weymouth, Quincy area. So we had like, and you could come straight from Scituate, Cohasset. So we were like right on the border of a bunch of towns. So I think we reached like a wide audience, and we saw so many cars that day honking and yelling out the window and talking to us. And then we had some speakers talk, some from Hingham, some from Scituate, our friend from Norwell, talking about their experiences and the things that they've seen, and how the South Shore community is not immune. And then we went back out and we did more sign holding and stuff. Yeah.
Any unusual interactions that took place?
Darcy?
Yes, for sure.
Tell me more.
I don't know how this started because I was starting to pack up electronic stuff because it's starting to rain. I didn't want it to break or anything. But based off of what people have told me, which it's my sister, so I trust her resource. But someone handed a police officer, like the police officers were distributed throughout, like there were so many of them, probably around like 20. And they were kind of behind us as we were facing the road. And someone, like a protester, handed a cop a sign, and he kind of held it like he didn't want to, like it was kind of like a piece of trash that you find in the woods. And you're just like, ugh. And people like responded to it. They're like, why aren't you following this if you're here in support of us? Like they were there to protect us, but they were showing signs that they were in support of it. So we were like, why are you showing us mixed signals here? Like, are you for us or are you against us? Mm. And there was a crowd that started to kneel in front of the cop, chanting, take a knee, take a knee. And the other cops that were lined across, like they were lined across probably about 500 feet or so. Mm-hmm. And they all started pulling into the cop, and they were like a crowd. And the rain started coming down, and I was like, are people going to move? Like, who's going to move first? Because someone's got to move because it's about to hail. And the cops turned away. They walked away. And it was fascinating to watch. Yeah.
Olivia, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, this whole thing's really complicated. If we had done it in a different place, usually the bathing beach, like that field area, you have to apply. And then we tried to put on a show there with our bands once, and it was like so much work. You have to apply for an event, you have to get parking, you have to like tell the police officers so that they can have people there, so people aren't going to be running into the street and all this stuff. But we had wanted to do this within the next few days, so we really sped up the whole thing and basically didn't ask for permission, but I think they were just a little bit intimidated, so they just let us have permission. And this whole thing was kind of crazy. So that part was really complicated because people were like saying like, take a knee, right? Which like, and why aren't you holding the sign with pride if you claim to, be on our side about all of this and, respect our cause? But at the same time, our time was up on the field. And so technically we could have gotten, like everyone there could have gotten in huge trouble for then like trespassing on town property. So it was a very weird mixed signal thing to close out the night or the afternoon. But I'm kind of glad it happened. It set, a precedent for how we're not going to back down on this, even if it means, some of us could get arrested and we could, come get in trouble with the law a little bit. We were determined to take a stand on this and show them what we're made of. Yeah.
Aside from the refusal of the police officers to join the protesters in taking a knee, to the best of your recollection, was anything said by the officers or any other gestures made by the officers to suggest that they were not supportive of your protest?
Yeah, so there were a few officers there with masks on because we were trying to social distance, but it just didn't work out. We didn't have enough, they wouldn't let us like spread out like down the street. So it's like, we can't social distance then, but we all had masks on, and a few of the masks that the officers were wearing said Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter on them, which is just a poor choice to bring to a protest. It's like they woke up that morning and chose to bring that specifically to this. So I was like, you could have just avoided that today or something. It was just a little bit of disrespect there. And then when he was holding the sign, like there was I don't know if this was a different time or the same time, but there was an officer holding the sign, and he held with it for I think he held with it for a picture, but I don't know if that was like a conscious thing that he was doing, like that people were taking pictures of him. But him and a few girls there, I think there was a guy in there too, were just like having a conversation, and it seemed a little bit heated. Darcy and I were running around trying to make sure everything was going smoothly, so I didn't hear everything that was said, but I think there was definitely a heated conversation or two between some of the protesters and the police, but nothing happened. There was no like physical violence, or no one got arrested or anything like that, which I was actually surprised by. Yeah.
Let's talk about your expectation of the officers taking a knee. Why do you feel that was important, that they needed to take a knee with you?
Well, to begin with, like I don't think either of us started it. It was, I forget who, or I just didn't notice because my back was turned. But part of the reason why I was expecting them to be more in support of us was because even when we were setting up, like Liv and I showed up about 45 minutes before everyone else did, and the sheriff, or not the sheriff, the chief walked up to us and was basically just telling us, hey, like, we're in full support. Not in those words. Wait, I need to think of what he said. It was like, we're here for you guys. We're not going to disturb you. The only thing that we're not going to let you do, and the only thing we're going to interfere with, is if you guys start to like filter into the street, because it was 3A, and that made sense. But then he was like, we have water if you guys need water. We have shade in our cars if you need it, that sort of a thing. So I was like, okay. It's like, you're not just here to, you know, stand behind us or stand around us and make sure nothing crazy happens. Like, you're showing care for us and making sure that we're all okay while we're protesting this. So in the back of my head, I was like, are they in favor of this? Like, more so than the Situate police, who hasn't really formed an opinion publicly about it. Like, there's in the back of my head kind of like hopeful. And so when that whole thing happened with the sign holding and the kneeling, I was kind of like, these are mixed signals. Like, what is your opinion? Like, tell us your opinion.
Yeah,
You know?
I'd spoken with the chief the day before. I think it was the chief. I don't want to say exactly because I don't want to spread false news, but I spoke with somebody the day earlier and just about like parking and like you can't go into 3A because that's an important road. And obviously we didn't want our protesters to get hurt by like cars. So we weren't going to have that happen. And he seemed completely, he said, I completely support what you guys are doing, and you seem to be doing it in a safe and legal manner, and blah, 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 and saying all these things. So I think the biggest thing with him, or I don't know if it was the same guy, I don't think it was, but like not holding the sign and not taking a knee or not having conversations with people. People were walking up to them, or maybe, you know, there were a few things that, again, they were giving mixed signals on, and it was like, it's not enough just to say, we support you and we'll give you parking. That's, you know, I didn't even ask for parking. We were gonna park like across the street in some place we didn't need permission for. So we were like, okay, it's not enough. And it seems like it seemed a little bit like they were trying to take a little bit of responsibility for it, like have just a little bit of credit, but they weren't willing to go all the way and show us that they fully supported our cause. Yeah.
So as this interaction began to unfold between the protesters and the police, and if the police refused to take a knee, what then happened? What did the protesters do in response?
When they refused to take a knee, the protesters, they were chanting, take a knee still, and they were kind of yelling at them. Again, nothing broke out physically, which I was pleasantly surprised by, actually, because that was going to be a whole other complicated thing. But the officers eventually walked away back to their cars. You know, it was 4 o'clock at that point, and that's when we said the whole thing was going to be over. And Darcy and I are trying to get our stuff out of the rain, like our like speakers and like expensive stuff, just like back into our cars. We were kind of running around, and I think what happened, because we were kind of looking a little bit from a distance, we weren't right in the action, but I think what happened was the police officers just like walked away. People started like chanting and kept on yelling at them, and you know, like really really stating their opinion, but like peacefully, and not, you know, getting in their personal space, which was really sweet. And then I think they just left. The police just left, and it's pouring rain at that point, so then everyone else just kind of left. But there were definitely people on social media later that day and the next morning talking about what happened and their perspective from that, and what they expected the police had done and how they wished it would have gone and stuff. So there was still conversation about it after everyone left.
Well, thank goodness it didn't get violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do next going forward? What's your vision? What's your plan as citizens in our community, as young people, and as it relates to this particular movement? What do you want to do?
I just want to keep going. I I want to keep donating to foundations and charities. I want to keep marching. I want to keep protesting. Like every single Monday in Scituate at 4, there's a protest. I'm going to keep going to those. Keep spreading the word on social media about what's going on, because there are so many updates, and just try to encourage the people around us to keep going, because change, it's working. Like, it's slow, but it's working.
Mm-hmm.
There's reform happening. So
Right.
I just want to keep going.
Yeah. Advocating for police reform every day. I mean, there was a girl talking a lot at the protest, which was very helpful. And she was saying, you know, she was grateful, obviously, that we're all grateful that people showed up and that people are posting on social media about it, but that's not enough. You can't just say, okay, I went to a protest and now I'm done. Or I reposted something on social media and now I'm done. It's about every day. Your how you present yourself as a person should reflect your morals and what you believe in. And if it's police reform we want, then that's what we should talk about all the time. And, try to like politely educate those who don't agree with us, and obviously donate to the foundations and sign the petitions of things that you believe in. Say their names: Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, etc. And just don't stop. I see our feeds becoming way more normal now. People are posting about hanging out with their friends at the beach and everything. And it was for a solid 3 days that everyone was in support of Black Lives Matter. And now all of a sudden, because they posted a black square or one video, now they think they're done. They did their part. But if that's something you really, really believe in, then you're going to fight every single day until that change is made.
Yep.
So I really hope our communities continue to, at Scituate, we would stand at the Rotary between a bunch of towns, and we got hate, we got support, but you literally just stand there in the burning sun with the sign. And if that's what you can do, if you don't have money to go out and donate, and that's what you can do, then do that. If you can post about things and try to educate your older relatives on this stuff, that's what you can do. So just everyone stepping up to do like the absolute maximum of what you can do in your situation. And I think that's going to help create change faster.
Yeah. And I'll add like one little quick thing to that. Like, there are a lot of people, especially this is in terms of the social media posts, everyone, it seems, that needs to hear what's happening aren't listening. And so, I mean, within the group of people that I know and I talk to on a daily basis, there are people who are ignoring everything that's happening, or they're reacting to it in a sense that, the people who are going for this movement wouldn't want to hear about it. And so just being completely just pressing how you feel, and educating people about like all cops are bad. Like, there's a lot of back and forth on that, and just explaining where it comes from, and just educating people on what's going on, and having those really tough conversations. Like, that's so important as well, because otherwise the people who need to hear it aren't going to hear it.
Do you think we have good cops here in our community of Hull and Hingham and Scituate and Cohasset and the other South Shore communities?
That's a tough question. In Scituate in particular, because that's where I live, I stand with all cops are bad. That's what I stand with. And, because we're mostly white, there's not that much of an issue that arises because of that. But there's a lot of passive aggressiveness and elusiveness around police establishing rights and equal treatment of all races, especially Black people. And it's just, I don't think they're good.
I think if you're a bystander to anything, then you are part of the problem.
Yep.
And that goes with everybody. So, not saying that every single police officer has, attacked a person of color just because of the color of their skin, or has racially profiled them, but because you don't speak up, or you haven't resigned because of something like that, or you're not actively and publicly enacting change in your community, which I haven't seen police officers in our community doing at all, then you're contributing to the problem.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
What if I told you what if I told you that the Hingham chief of police, Glenn Olson,
Mhm.
is planning a forum on the topic of Black Lives Matter and policing policy?
Mhm.
Would that surprise you? A public forum.
It wouldn't
I would,
surprise
I'm surprised because, I mean, it's out of pride. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Right.
Because like that little chunk of hope that I had in the back of my head when interacting with, I believe that was the chief, but when he was
Yeah.
like saying like, I'm here for you guys, like, that's what I hoped for. I hoped that he would stand with us, and that's like a little sign that he does,
Mhm.
and he's trying. And
Would you be open to participating in that forum in some
absolutely,
fashion?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And would you come with an open mind, that is to listen and learn?
Yes,
And
I think
he would come with an open mind to listen and learn?
yes, I think everybody should. People change, and Darcy and I, and I think our community, we're very empathetic, and we obviously understand where people are coming from in everyday situations. So we would bring that into any civil and peaceful conversation. And if they listen to us, we'll listen to them, and that's how we're going to get things done. If you want respect, you show respect. So I would be definitely willing to participate in that peacefully. Yeah.
And as we wrap up, any final words?
Thank you for, reaching out and letting us have this interview. It's just gonna elongate and spread the information to as many people as possible. The protest was 4 hours long, but the effects that it has, we hope, are going to be long lasting. So you're contributing to that, and thank you.
Darcy, final words?
just I want to repeat that, but at the same time, I just hope that that the protests are saying throughout, not everyone that needs to hear it eventually. I know that's not happening right now, but I hope that eventually everyone hears us to the point where they understand where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
All right, listen, thank you both very much. Olivia and Darcy, thank you. Have a great day. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend, all right?
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much.